Alright, let's move on to special weapons. So, I'm a little bit of an oddball when it comes to sniper rifles. I have a lot that I like, actually. I know everyone has their trusty 1,000-yard stare, and don't get me wrong, I do, for PvE. I do. I have the vendor one, and I do enjoy it quite a lot for PvE. It's my go-to. But when it comes to PvP, I have very different tastes from most people. So, I kind of wanted to show some of them off, and some of them are actually viable in PvE as well. Let's start with the almighty Still Piercer, which is probably the second most popular sniper rifle to the 1,000-yard stare. I mean, I would at least assume in competitive play. I know a lot of people do like this thing, however, it still, of course, does not come close to the 1,000-yard stare. Still Piercer, you know, it's the Hunter exclusive one, so obviously I can only use it on my Hunter, but since I've been maining my Hunter for the past about 2 or 3 months, I gotta say, I've really fallen in love with this weapon, as I've fallen in love with all of the Hawkeye snipers, as a matter of fact. I really, really like this thing. It just feels very nice in my hands. It feels much more lightweight than the 1,000-yard stare, and I think that's why I like it. Just, you know, I feel like I have a lot more control over the way it moves, and it feels so much more snappy, obviously, having snapshot. It's just a very, very strong weapon. And not to mention, it does have that nice aim assist, which makes drag scoping easier, of course, which is always nice. And, you know, it's just a good all-around weapon. I absolutely love it. It is probably the sniper I have taken into the Crucible the most since, I would say since January, or even since December. So, yes, definitely a fan of Still Piercer. It does take some getting used to, obviously, with this scope. But the thing you got to remember when it comes to Hawkeye and Omelon scopes, and I think a lot of people forget this because they're always, you know, they're attracted to the word low zoom when they don't really understand what magnification really is. And I think that's something that they got to remember. So, for instance, the Still Piercer scope is technically low zoom, okay? There is a scope very similar to it that most normal legendary Hawkeye sniper rifles can get, and I do have a Tamar D with it, but it is a slightly higher magnification. However, the lowest zoom scopes for Hawkeye or Omelon is 4.6 times magnification. That is still higher than short gaze and ambush. It is lower than the Longview SLR-10, but it is still higher than the short gaze and ambush at the moment, which are 4 times, okay? Obviously, these are going to be brought up when the update comes out, but yes, Still Piercer applies to that as well. So you just remember that, okay? Remember that for a second. The highest zoom scopes that Omelon or Hawkeye can get is only 6 times, okay? Which is actually a lot lower than the highest zoom scopes of any of the normal sniper rifles. In fact, 6 times is Taxus, which is technically considered a mid-zoom scope for normal sniper rifles, okay? Remember that for a second, all right? Because I want to go into some other sniper rifles here really quick. Let's move on to my other favorite Hawkeye sniper rifle, and that is the Antinomy, the vendor Antinomy from New Monarchy. Its vendor perks are, okay, I do like them. I do like the vendor perks a lot. Of course, there is one glaring perk that is not so hot, but that aside, it is still a very good weapon, having unflinching and snapshot, and or alternatively, injection mold, which honestly, I would say is even better because it gives you that stability increase while also increasing your zoom speed. So, so the Antinomy, at least the vendor one, comes with the 2 lowest zoom scopes of Hawkeye, which both have the kind of the circle sight on them, which is not something I'm really all that much of a fan of. I actually prefer the highest zoom scope from Hawkeye just because it's the most similar to the Still Piercer scope. It's actually basically the exact same, just at a higher zoom, and it doesn't have this circle dot thing, which honestly is very off-putting, I would say, and is also a thing I don't like on Omelon scopes either. But, that being said, its zoom, being the lowest zoom, is still, you know, it's lower than Taxus. It's not much higher than the Longview SLR-10. It's a decent scope. It really is they're really decent low zoom scopes. And, you know, again, they take some getting used to because a lot of people aren't, you know, used to Hawkeye scopes and whatnot. But I think if you can get used to them, they are incredibly powerful. And you also have to remember something about Hake. Most Hake sniper rifles happen to have the highest aim assist, which again makes drag scoping a lot easier, and Antinomy is no exception. I've made some pretty darn good plays with this thing. I know some really good snipers who are actually a big fan of this thing, and it's also mid-impact, which, you know, after the update, should be able to res snipe in stuff like Trials and Skirmish. So yes, this is the Antinomy. It is a great sniper rifle. You jerk, why would you put that up? I hate you. I'm gonna kill your buddy for that, and then I'm gonna kill you. But yes, it's a very good sniper rifle, very, very strong. I highly recommend going to pick it up before the update drops, as I said in my vendor video. But now I kind of wanted to show it off to you guys and let you know how awesome this thing is, because it really is a lovely sniper. And speaking of oddball snipers, let's go on to Omelon, okay? Omelon is interesting. It's a very interesting beast because, well, there was a time earlier on in the Taken King, and I'm sure some people remember this very well, where this weapon right here, the Irene RR4, could roll with Luck in the Chamber, which meant one-shot body shots, and a lot of people weren't all that happy with it. Of course, you know, naturally, and I wasn't either. I wasn't a fan. In fact, I refused to pick one up for a while for that very reason. But, you know what? Now that I've actually gotten my hands on one, and I've used it with more, I guess I should say, fair perks, this one having performance, it actually has performance bonus and then an option of Clown Cartridge and Mulligan, both of which are awesome perks on a sniper rifle. This thing is quite the beast in PvP. It also has Snapshot on it as well. Like, this is pretty much a god roll for PvP in the terms of sniper rifles. Now, people will say, well, you don't have the Falcon scope, so, you know, what's the point in using it? Well, honestly, screw the Falcon. I don't like the Falcon. It's got a very similar reticle to what the Antinomy has on it, which I just don't prefer. But here's the thing. I have the Yepeki, which has this more dot-like scope on it. And you know what? The Yepeki scope is only like a 0.4 times magnification higher than the Falcon, so it's really not that big of a difference. Like, it is less of a difference between the Longview SLR-10 and the short gaze. Like, that's how close it is. So honestly, I don't really see what the big deal is. I don't really see why people are so opposed to using that scope, because honestly, I like it a bunch. And not to mention, having Clown Cartridge on the thing is just really, really helpful in certain scenarios. You know, me being an impulsive reloader in the Crucible, I absolutely love this thing to death. And there you go. See, there it goes, kicking in right there. I just adore this thing. It is one of my favorite sniper rifles. This is my go-to whenever I'm running my Warlock, just because it has that high impact variant. And it's basically, you know, it's my Still Piercer that I can use on everything. Alright, now it's time. Let's talk about my baby. And I know this is not a Taken King weapon. Well, it's not a Taken King weapon yet, but it's going to be here in the April update very soon. Let's talk about this thing, okay? This, ladies and gentlemen, this is my wife. Her name is LDR. We've been in a long distance relationship for some time, if you know what I mean. But she is absolutely lovely, and I love her. I always have, ever since we met back in, I believe it was April. I believe it was April of last year. We met, and we've just gotten together so well ever since. She is my lover. I adore her, and we have been through a lot together. You know, even in the Taken King, mostly through level 20 strikes and the Crucible, we've been working together. But here she is, and I'm sure you've seen her in montages and whatnot. And of course, now I'm still trying to get accustomed to the short gaze scope, which I've never really used all that much. It also has Taxis scope, but yes. This is my baby right here. Bow before her, because she has and I should say, goddess roll of all goddess rolls. Of course, Outlaw, Double Down, and Field Scout. The most untouchable perk roll as of right now. I'm still waiting for the day when, and I won't be surprised if it comes very soon, considering it will be the new ammo cheese once the update hits. And that is the perk Double Down. But you know what? And while she still has her heyday, I'm just gonna use her, and I'm gonna be very happy about it because I love her. I absolutely do. Double Down, of course. I can start any Crucible match with a full 24 rounds. I have Outlaw, which, you know, is pretty much why I'm an impulsive reloader. And then Field Scout, of course, so I don't even have to be wearing sniper-specific armor to have those 24 rounds. Really, this is my ammo machine right here. And it's high impact, so what more is there to say about it? It's a lovely sniper rifle. Heck, with the changes coming to overshields, this thing actually still has a chance of res sniping in trials, even in year 2. I kid you not. It can do 282 to the head in against a 320 character. And, you know, there is speculation that even the snipers that do 267 to the head will be able to res snipe. So there is a possibility this thing will be res sniping when the April update drops. And I'm sure that's going to piss a lot of people off. But you know what? She's my baby, and I don't care. You don't touch my baby. And on to my other baby, actually, who's quickly becoming my baby, is the Wayloran's March, okay? The lowest impact variant of sniper rifle. Can't even 2-tap body shot on a high armor targets in the Crucible. Obviously, this thing has almost no utility in PvE. Of course, I'm demonstrating it in PvE anyway at the moment. This is the vendor version that Lord Shax sold. And I know a lot of people are going to criticize me going, oh, it's just super high aim assist. You know, anyone can use the Wayloran's March. Well, screw you, okay? I use ambush scope, and that basically brings the aim assist down to 1,000-yard stare levels. So shut up. You have no right to talk, okay? This thing is awesome. First of all, I do love the Firefly. I do see what people mean when they're talking about the Quest 1,000-yard stare and that Firefly explosion on their heads being oh so satisfying, because I definitely get that out of this Wayloran's March. Firefly and Army of One being its perks, and then Injection Mold, which of course increases its zoom speed, you know, having ambush, of course, that's already sped up as it is. I just adore this thing. I absolutely love it. It is my go-to for 6s. Obviously, it's not going to be as much for 3s and trials, just because, you know, it can't res snipe. I mean, it can. You just have to get good. But, I mean, it can res snipe. It just takes 2 shots, you know? Get good, you know? All that stuff. But yes, I love this weapon, the Wayloran's March. It is a very fun weapon, and I really do recommend everybody picks one up at some point, just because it's so fun to use. It really is. It actually... You know what it really feels like? It feels like the year 2 version of Praedyth's Revenge. That is exactly what it feels like. It reloads incredibly quickly on its own without the need of Feeding Frenzy. And it has that Firefly effect. It's got the ambush scope. It's just a beautiful, beautiful sniper rifle that is very similar to Praedyth's. And I highly, highly recommend everybody picks one up, because you are going to have a lot of fun with it in Clash and Control. Trust me. Alright, let's move on to shotguns, shall we? So, this right here is my favorite shotgun in year 2. This is the Pache, the Hawkeye shotgun from Dead Orbit. I know there's a lot of Hawkeye shotguns floating around in the game, especially the Strongbow and the Jinku Kogo or whatever from the Gunsmith. But the Pache pretty much comes with the god roll you'd want from any of those shotguns anyway. It's got a full 6 in the mag, which is better than I can say for the Jinkugoku, and I think that's even better than the Strongbow as well. It's got rangefinder, it's got crowd control, it's the exact same impact variant as those shotguns. It's got rifled barrel on it. Really, this thing is the god roll shotgun, Hawkeye shotgun that everybody could possibly want. Although it is not the highest impact variant, which is why most people don't use it often in PvP, it's actually very viable in PvP. You would be surprised. And being even more viable in PvE. In fact, if shotguns could get that little PvE buff that they so desperately need, this thing really could just tear things up. Like, look at the ranges that I am killing some of these enemies from. It is just insane. I love this thing. You know, rangefinder basically just maxes out its range even further. It fires nice and quick. That crowd control just makes it so much more formidable against the stronger targets and whatnot. It's just an all-around beautiful, beautiful shotgun. And really, if you don't have this thing already, what is wrong with you? And to demonstrate my most powerful PvP shotgun, I brought out my Blade Dancer to show you guys. Oh man, this thing, you know, honestly, I hate this weapon. I hated it for the longest time because, you know, I hated all those weapons that dropped like crazy in households, all those extremely strong shotguns. I mean, they all bothered me, except for the Judgment, of course, because the Judgment was my baby, but I had had that thing since vanilla, and I loved it to death. And it really did kind of, you know, annoy me that everybody could get a Fellwinters, everybody could get a Matador, everybody could get a Party Crasher. I hated the weapons because of that. However, now that it's a lot more scarce, I mean, aside from that conspiracy theory, of course, the Party Crasher doesn't really bother me quite as much, I must say. So, let me talk about my Party Crasher here for just a second. So, I've gotten maybe 4 of these to drop since the Taken King came out, and I've gotten a few good rolls. I got one with full auto in final round, which actually, it sounded nice in theory, but unfortunately, I didn't really like the full auto effect on it at all. And on top of that, its range boost wasn't that great, and neither were its muzzle perks. It didn't have rifled barrel. It had like something else. I can't remember. But I honestly wasn't the biggest fan of it. However, this one I've got comes with rifled barrel. And although its muzzle options aren't that great either, having I think linear compensator as its best bet, it has casket mag and final round. Now let me tell you this thing about casket mag on a shotgun, guys. This is like the most useful perk when it comes to PvP and PvE, honestly. Casket mag is awesome on special weapons. Maybe not as much on primary weapons because you don't really ever run out of primary ammo all that often, and rarely does it save you in an engagement. But casket mag on a special weapon, especially a shotgun, is awesome. It allows you to get up very close, and even though, you know, most of the time, as most shotgunners know, when you're getting it up, when you're getting up in people's faces, you're gonna take a lot of damage. Obviously, you know, you're putting yourself in the line of fire, but you know, it's because you want that kill. And with this Party Crasher, well, actually, typically, and although it's not life support, typically that gives me that extra round I need, so I don't have to reload and just turn right around and shotgun someone else. Or, heck, if I run out of ammo, but, you know, on that last shot, of course, I'm going to get the kill having final round. It's just a very, very, very lovely perk to have, and I almost never run out of ammo. In fact, once I'm done with my entire clip, I can just put it back in my pocket, start going full primary on people, and when they get me in the red, bam, reloads. It's like Cocoon, but better. It's like a lot better. I love casket mag. It is the most useful thing to have in PvP when it comes to a shotgun. And I highly, highly recommend you keeping a shotgun, especially a Party Crasher, if you can get that perk on it. And then on to yet another vendor weapon, of course, being the Burden of Proof from the New Monarchy. This thing has full auto. It has Underdog, which, you know, Underdog, honestly, I don't really see much use for the thing. Just because this thing already has rifled barrel on it, thus the range increase. I don't know, it's never really all that noticeable. Not to mention, you're not making much use of the range on a shotgun of this archetype just because with full auto, it's constantly shredding things so quickly. So really, you know, the range is a bonus, don't get me wrong, but this thing just doesn't hit as hard to warrant that. But the full auto on this type of shotgun is just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. Like, really. I mean, I know everyone was a big fan of the Dry Rot back in House of Wolves. I was too. I had it on Xbox. Unfortunately, was not able to get that roll or get that weapon at all on PS4 because RNG is a douche. But you know what? I love this shotgun, this Burden of Proof. It came with a pretty amazing roll from the vendor, and I can't really recommend it enough. You know, always want that full auto on a shotgun of this type. And yeah, just I wish I used it more, honestly. I really wish I did. But you know, I definitely have more preference to like my Patch A and whatnot. I find that solar weapons just have, you know, they're just more useful more often, because really the only void enemy you're going to be shredding with a shotgun is a Minotaur. So unless you're fighting Vex, you know, I just feel like the Patch A is a little bit more useful to me, but that's not, you know, 100% of the time, obviously. And last but of course certainly not least, it's fusion rifle time. Hey, everybody loves fusion rifles, right? Everybody wishes they were good and stuff. This is the Thesan FR4, of course, the only fusion rifle anyone's given any credit to aside from Plan C, of course. And honestly, I really wish they did give them more credit. Also, why was that reloading when it was empty? I don't know. I really wish they did give them more credit because, gosh dang, fusion rifles, man, they can be so nasty. I've taken this thing into some 3v3s, this particular fusion rifle, and it is just nasty. It just shreds people. Of course, you know, with the update, they're going to be, you know, increasing base stability across all fusion rifles, which really makes the only downside to my Thesan a moot point. I know a lot of people would prefer hand-laid stock on a fusion rifle, but with the base stability going up and it already having such a high base stability, I really don't see the need for hand-laid stock. In fact, mine has enhanced battery, which I would actually prefer because, you know, I can get more shots off. You know, I can have a 6-round mag, which is just awesome. You know, this thing is pretty darn good. It's got rangefinder and army of one. I mean, it's effectively a god roll in that regard. And, you know, I just love this thing. I absolutely do. It is a great, great, great weapon that I highly recommend you pick up at some point if you can get a package for it. Wait for rangefinder. That really is the most crucial perk to having an effective PvP fusion rifle. And, you know, if PvE fusion rifles can get even more of a buff, that would be nice. And last but not least is, of course, heavy weapons. You know, I don't actually have that many to talk about because what are you going to do with heavy weapons? There's really only so much you can do. There's only 2 archetypes, all that good stuff. But let's start with my objection 4. This is the new Monarchy machine gun. This is not the vendor one, but it is the very first heavy weapon I obtained. In fact, I think it was the first weapon I obtained when the Taken King dropped. I had edged out New Monarchy and got this from my very first faction package. And it has been faithful to me ever since. This thing is just beautiful. It's got such great perks. 2 reload increasing perks, which honestly is a bit overkill. I would have been fine with just Feeding Frenzy, honestly. But Spray and Play, you know, it does have its usefulness in both PvE and PvP as well. Just not as often, I must say. But wow, this is an amazing machine gun, being of the highest impact variant. I absolutely adore this thing. And it is typically my go-to for PvP activities. I would say, yeah, of all of my machine guns, it is the best one. And on to a newer favorite. This is the Bredomart Stand, which is actually the vendor version with Spray and Play and crowd control from, you know, from the Iron Banner and whatnot. This is a freaking awesome machine gun as well. I would say this is my favorite PvE machine gun that I have. New as well. This was not my PvE go-to for a long time. I actually only got this in the most recent Iron Banner, so I've actually very much fallen in love with it, of course. I know a lot of people use it very frequently. You know, crowd control is always an amazing thing to have for PvE, and it's got that awesome stability. You know, it's just a very nice, hard-hitting machine gun, and I don't really think you can go wrong with this thing, no matter how hard you try. Let's be fair. But my previous favorite was the Ruin Wake, which mine has a very mixed role, but that's not to say I don't like it a lot. This one, the one that I've got, has no reload boosting perks, which is probably the one thing I do not like about it. However, it does have Army of One, which is awesome for PvE, but it also has Counterbalance, which really just negates any need for a stability boosting perk. This thing, it's awesome. It hits hard. Again, it doesn't reload the quickest, which is a big shame. I mean, it's not too big of a deal when I'm running Gunslinger and running Chain of Woe anyway. But otherwise, that is probably the one thing I don't like about it, and probably the only reason I prefer my new Bredomart Stand to it. But this thing has been faithful to me for a very, very long time, and I can't complain about it all that much. But speaking of faithful weapons, my very, very first vendor purchase in the Taken King is in my hands right now, and that is the Almighty Vertigo from Future War Cult, my favorite faction. This thing has basically the god roll for Suros rocket launchers. I don't care who you are, if you were searching for a battle roll from the Suros, JLB 42 or 47 or whatever from the Gunsmith, there's really no point. You might as well just pick this thing up, the Vertigo. It's got everything you could want out of those 2 rocket launchers and then some. It's got the best possible velocity, it's got a decent blast radius, and it's got grenades and horseshoes. It's the best. It really is the best of any Suros rocket launcher out there. I really don't know how you could possibly ask for better. I absolutely adore this thing. It has been faithful to me for a very, very long time. It has been my PvP go-to since the beginning. But those are my favorite weapons in the Taken King, legendary-wise. I'm actually going to probably make a video on exotic favorites at some point. Like probably a top 10 of some sort, because there are some exotics I do want to pay special attention to, and, you know, admit some guilty pleasures that I'm sure a lot of people are going to be like, screw you, that gun sucks, I hate it, and, you know, and all that stuff. But you know what? The weapons in this game are one of my favorite parts of the game. Weapons, and then, of course, the gameplay. They really are what make this game what it is, and they're the things that I wanted to talk about. Of course, you know, with the April update, I can't wait to check out what new guns the game will have to offer. I don't know if the vendor ones will be all that different. Hopefully, they at least have new roles. But, you know, at the very least, we'll have those returning Year 1 weapons and returning Year 1 exotics, more specifically, to look... Actually, I would say the legendaries, more specifically, to look forward to. But, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so very much for watching. And I will see you all in the next one.